Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Today is Wednesday, which means it's the day where I answer your questions. And this week, I've got a couple of fairly interesting questions. The first question says, ask you anything. How many licks does it take to get you to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? We all know it takes Mr. Owl only 3. It took 10-year-old me 1,657. Well, you know, it's a very interesting question, and I'm glad that there are science nerds that have actually figured this out. I'm not making this up. If you do a Google search for how many licks center Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop, then you will come up with several news stories from People, ABC News, the New York Post, the Today Show, etc., etc. So I have actually a couple of stories, one from Live Science that goes a little more in-depth here and talks about some research done by New York University. And then there's just sort of a brief overview from a website called todayifoundout.com. So on the todayifoundout.com website, the individual writing here says, today I found out how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop. Obviously, this depends somewhat on a variety of factors, such as the size of the person's tongue, whether they concentrate the licking on just one side, how hard they press their tongue, the amount of saliva, etc. In any event, many researchers and others have attempted to tackle this problem with the following results. Engineering students from Purdue University created a licking machine that mimicked the human tongue and licking motion. They then tested the machine against real Tootsie Pops, with the result being an average of 364 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop, licking only one side constantly. These same students from Purdue also tested this against their own tongues and found that it took an average of 252 licks to get to the center, again licking only one side, but this time with a real tongue. For a little more off-the-wall results, students at the University of Cambridge concluded that it takes 3,481 licks to reach the center. One can only deduce from their results that the University of Cambridge has the most timid lickers in the world. According to Tootsie Roll Industries, over 20,000 letters from children around the world have been mailed to them concerning the issue since 1970, with the average child reporting that it took them around 600 licks to reach the center. No doubt the higher number of licks is accounted for by their smaller tongues and the fact that they weren't necessarily concentrating on one side. The latter theory is also backed by independent researchers who found licking one side, then rotating to the other and licking again, and continuing to do this until you reach the center, that it takes an average of 508 licks to reach the center using the even licking method. Both the latter result and the average, or rather the latter result of an average of 508 licks when licking both sides, and the Purdue students' results of 252 licks when concentrating on one side are remarkably consistent. So it would seem that an adult, it would take around 250 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop if you only lick from one side, and about twice that if you lick both sides evenly. And now here are some bonus facts, or actually I will save the bonus facts about Tootsie Rolls until after I tell you what Live Science has to say. Because they're going based off of a study from New York University, so they write that researchers at New York University arrived at the number, and that number being about 1,000, by custom making their own candy spheres and cylinders to test how materials dissolve in a flow. But this seemingly simple process is actually quite complex, according to study leader Leif Rystroff, a physicist at NYU. First, the presence of the solid disrupts the flow, forcing it to bend and change directions. He then said, but then the flow starts to dissolve the solid so that now something about the flow is being imprinted on the solid object. What happens is you get a weird feedback between the two. The result was surprising. Tests of both spherical lollipop-type candies and Jolly Rancher-style cylinders resulted in the same half-sphere shape after a little time in the fluid. Rystroff and his colleagues reported in February in an issue of the Journal of Fluid Mechanics. Rystroff, along with NYU graduate student Jinzi Mac Wang and mathematician Nicholas Moore of Florida State University, were interested in the dissolution question because it applies to more than just candy. In fact, the dynamics of dissolution and erosion are applicable in numerous fields. Rystroff said, for instance, understanding the process could explain how rivers carve landscapes. Dissolving materials are also important in chemical industrial processes and in the pharmaceutical industry. Those pills can't just pass right through the stomach, you know. Rystroff said the simplest thing you can do is have simple shapes in a nice steady flow and then look at what happens when they are dissolving. The researchers turned to hard candy for their experiments, but they could not just go out and buy Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pops. Commercial candies are full of tiny bubbles that could skew the experiment. So the researchers had to create bubble-free, perfectly shaped hard candies that even a mathematician would love. He said, none of us are particularly good cooks, but we learned to make candy ourselves. Then the researchers put the candy into flows of water moving between 4 to 40 inches per second. They used time-lapse photography to capture the dissolution process over several hours. And there's more to this, so let me just skip down to where they answer the question of how many licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop. They found that a lollipop with a radius of 0.4 inches licked at the equivalent to a flow rate of 1 centimeter per second would reveal its center in about 1,000 licks. Of course, plenty of real-world factors affect that number. Online, posts about Tootsie Pop licking experiments report numbers ranging from 144 to 850, and again, based on the numbers from the other report, it depends on whether you're concentrating on one side or licking evenly to go the whole way around. Rystroff concluded, it could be 500, it could be 1,500, it's a crude estimate, but seems like it's working pretty well. So what about these extra bonus fun facts about Tootsie Rolls? Well, I will tell you when we come back, and then I will answer the other question that was submitted this week for the AMA. And remember, you can send your questions about pretty much anything to ama@fpbradio.com, and I'll be back in just a moment here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, before I continue with the Ask Me Anything, and I promise I will give you those bonus questions or bonus facts about Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pops in just a second. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. For over 35 years, Roberts and Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They now take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum order requirement for all orders paid in the cryptocurrency. So give them a call today for some knowledgeable advice on investing and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So what about these bonus facts about Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pops? Apparently, the Tootsie Rolls were named after creator Leo Hirschfeld's 5-year-old daughter, whose nickname was Tootsie. Her real name was Clara. Leo set out to create a chocolate that would not melt easily and eventually came up with the artificial chocolate candy, the Tootsie Roll. This ability to not melt easily and to use artificial ingredients that weren't being rationed during war times proved a huge boon for the company as it eventually began being included in all soldiers' rations during World War II. The low price of the artificial ingredients made it a popular treat during the Depression as well, along with the Tootsie Pop. The Tootsie Pop was created in 1930 by Brandon Perry, who was working for the Sweets Company of America that also made the Tootsie Roll. About 64 million Tootsie Rolls are produced every day, along with 20 million Tootsie Pops. Whenever someone mails a letter to Tootsie Roll Industries stating how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, they are sent a certificate called a Clean Stick Award. As alluded to previously, before Tootsie Roll Industries was known as such, they were known as the Sweets Company of America. They changed their name from that to Tootsie Roll Industries in 1966. Contrary to popular belief, Tootsie Roll Industries has never accepted the wrapper of a Tootsie Pop in exchange for a prize. The common rumor was that if it contained a Native American boy shooting a star, you would get a free Tootsie Pop. If it contained 3 unbroken circles, you'd likewise be given free candy. According to Tootsie Roll Industries, they have never run any such promotion, and the Native American boy alone appears on about 1/3 of the wrappers. It is unknown where the rumor got started. Interestingly, though, the rumor was perpetrated by a few store owners who would accept the wrappers in exchange for prizes, such as a Tootsie Pop or a Tootsie Roll. Tootsie Rolls were the first penny candy to be individually wrapped. And the final fact that I will give you about Tootsie Rolls is that Tootsie Rolls are made of sugar, corn syrup, condensed milk, artificial cocoa flavoring, whey, soy lecithin, orange extract, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, and other artificial flavors. And speaking of artificial flavors, that brings me to the next question. The next question that I have is, what do I know about the mandatory adult vaccination program that has been reported on? Well, I have done some research, and a quick Google search revealed some articles from, shall we say, less than reputable news. I use that term news very loosely. Less than reputable so-called news outlets. But I did find the National Adult Immunization Plan from the Health and Human Services. And they do talk about needing to increase the number of adults who are immunized against various things. Let me skip down here. I'm actually looking at the plan right now. So they have here a table that says Objective 2D-12, or actually IID-12, increase the percentage of children and adults who are vaccinated annually against seasonal influenza. The 2012 percentage for adults under, or rather over the age of 18 is 39%. The target percentage for the year 2020 is 70%. The target percentage for healthcare professionals is 90%. Currently, healthcare professionals get vaccinated for flu at about 62%. And pregnant women, they have listed on here 52% is the 2012 average, with no target in development. They then have Objective IID 13. Increase the percentage of adults who are vaccinated against pneumococcal disease. Non-institutionalized adults over the age of 65, they want at 90% as far as the number that is vaccinated. For non-institutionalized high-risk adults, but yet they don't necessarily define that term, between the age of 18 to 64, they want vaccinated at 60%. Institutionalized adults over the age of 18 in long-term care or nursing homes, they want vaccinated at 90%. They then have a goal here for people over the age of 60 being vaccinated against shingles. They want that to be 30%. It's currently about 20%. And Objective IID 15, increase hepatitis B vaccine coverage among high-risk populations. Healthcare personnel over the age of 19. The target for 2020 is 90%. It's currently around 64%. So what does any of this have to do with mandatory vaccinations? Because based on the percentages there, it's not 100% that they are listing. So let me just read briefly where I've done a Google search, or not Google, but I've just used the search function in this draft plan to find the word require, required, requiring, or any variant of the word require. The first instance of its usage here says the NAIP, that's the National Adult Immunization Plan, is a 5-year national plan. As a national plan, it will require engagement from a wide range of stakeholders to achieve its full vision. The plan emphasizes collaboration and prioritization of efforts that will have the greatest impact. The NAIP also aims to leverage the unique opportunity presented by the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Now, what does the implementation of the Affordable Care Act have to do with vaccinations, and are they going to force you to get them? I will answer those questions when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker will be available on February 19th. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So I will get back to answering the question about mandatory vaccines in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about Survivor Max by Davi Barker. In Survivor Max, written by Davi Barker, 11-year-old Max must survive the zombie apocalypse alone in New Hampshire. Slow-moving and non-thinking, the lame brains swarm his home searching for living flesh. Max must apply his Porcupine Freedom Scouts training to plan his escape, but first, he must prove that he's too smart to die. You can look for Survivor Max on Facebook and Amazon, or you can read that first chapter of the trilogy. Yes, I said trilogy. There are ultimately going to be 3 books about Survivor Max. The first chapter of the first book is available for free at survivormax.com. And if you have children or teenagers, etc., or maybe you just enjoy reading and you like zombie books, I definitely recommend Survivor Max, but especially if you're looking for good quality, reading for your teenager or preteen, then check it out, survivormax.com. So let's get back to answering the question about mandatory adult vaccinations. Is it actually being proposed? There's a claim based on an interpretation of the National Adult Immunization Plan, and this is actually a draft of the plan, that adults will be required to get vaccinated. And the plan, or rather the draft here, says the NAIP, that's the National Adult Immunization Plan, also aims to leverage the unique opportunity presented by the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. What does the Affordable Care Act have to do with vaccinations? Well, let me first, before answering that, continue just a little bit here where it says the plan establishes 4 key goals. So it's important to know what the goals are before we figure out how these goals are going to be implemented through the Affordable Care Act. So the first goal is to strengthen the adult immunization infrastructure. Goal number 2 is to improve access to adult vaccines. Goal number 3 is to increase community demand for adult immunizations. And goal number 4 is to foster innovation in adult vaccine development and vaccine-related technologies. So let's go down to the next usage of the word require, or a variant thereof, where it talks about the success of childhood vaccinations. The success can be attributed to many factors unique in pediatric vaccination, such as state laws requiring vaccination for school entry and the coordinated public health infrastructures established by the Vaccines for Children program, which is a federally funded program to provide free to provide free vaccines to children who are Medicaid eligible, those who are uninsured, those who are underinsured, or Native Americans or Native Alaskans. Let's skip down again to another usage of the word require. And here is where we find out how the Affordable Care Act is involved in this. It says, in addition, passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010 was an important milestone for adult vaccination in the United States. The Affordable Care Act expands access to health insurance to millions who were previously uninsured or underinsured and requires that recommended clinical prevention services, including vaccines, be provided without cost sharing in most health insurance plans, except for Medicare and traditional Medicaid plans in non-expansion states. So the use of the word require here just says that doctors and healthcare providers are required to provide vaccines free of charge to the patient. It does not say that vaccines are required to be given to their patients. It just says that they are required to provide them without cost to the patient. Now, I can see how someone can read the entirety. Well, actually, I don't see how anybody could read the entirety of this 52-page document. But if they did do so, I could see how they would come out with the conclusion, especially if that's what they thought beforehand. And does that make sense at all? And the reason I say if that's what they thought beforehand is because if you read something objectively to where you don't really know what to make of, or you have no preconceived notions about what is being presented in the document, you can read it and come up with your own opinion. If you have one of these preconceived notions, such as this lays out how they're going to force adults to get vaccines, then you can read this, and if you're not thinking objectively or doing the devil's advocate sort of thing in your head, then you could read this and say, yep, they use the word require several times, talks about how children's vaccinations are required, and we want to increase the number of adults that are vaccinated, and the Affordable Care Act requires that vaccines be provided without charge, so therefore they're going to force adults to get vaccinations. Maybe that's what is ultimately the plan. But reading this and, putting on my skeptic's glasses while I do so, I'm not seeing this as requiring anyone to get a vaccination. Except, there is one except in there. Skipping down a good ways to page 18 of the document, where they talk about some of the priorities described in the plan. Let me read this entire paragraph. It says, many of the priorities described in this plan, if implemented, could result in increased demand for adult vaccines and vaccination services. So they're talking about basically doing some sort of ad campaign sort of thing, using media, etc., to try to get people to ask their doctors about whatever, fill in the blank vaccine. So they're talking about wanting to increase the demand for adult vaccines and vaccination services. Thus, a reliable and steady supply of adult vaccines is needed to realize the full benefit of the action described in the plan. In addition, ensuring the functioning of routine systems will be critical in monitoring the response to public health emergencies that require vaccines, such as influenza pandemics. I don't think they are saying that they are going to require people to get vaccines, but when there's a pandemic, the demand will be increased, so that would require a bigger supply. I'll post the link. You can make up your own mind. Don't forget, send me questions, ama@fbpradio.com.